and then we will get started. Yeah. Fine. So what exactly is this complex work procurement, and where exactly we use this? Right? So most of you, in case you would have worked on EPC industries, right? Maybe it could be a construction, engineering, or even a consulting services. Uh, for instance, it can also be wherever you have this complex services. Let's say it can be anything like consulting, advertising, research and development, even professional services, right? So these kind of industries, they normally need contracts which have negotiation as well as complex terms and payment arrangements. Okay, so these kind of complex services can be handled by this complex work procurement. And the way we have it in cloud here is it's going to be an end-to-end integrated solution. Okay, so when I say end-to-end, so this particular solution that we have in terms of complex work procurement, it cuts across your procurement, your finance, your supply chain applications, and that is where the solution that's designed here in terms of the complex work procurement helps you to model procurement of complex contracts. So typical examples, as I said earlier, right? So the construction industries, consulting orgs, professional services, and so on. Right? Now, if you ask me, like these contracts normally have higher dollar values, and the lead times would also be considerably longer. Okay, and the payment terms will also be complex. Right. So if you ask me what is the benefit that we are getting out of this complex procurement, you can negotiate the financial terms of the agreements with your contractor and supplier in a more structured way. So that is one prime advantage of going with this complex procurement. Right? So let me go to the slide. Yeah, this is a distinct flavor within procurement. And let me bring up the process flow as well as the what are the steps that form this particular complex procurement in cloud. Okay, so let's look at the process flow. So apart from the normal procurement that we do, right? So here we have certain terminologies that we need to be aware of. So a couple of new terms or terminologies that you see on the screen. One could be your work confirmation. You would see something around retention release invoices, right? So let's try to understand them a bit better, and then we will look at the original transaction in the application. Right? So a typical complex procurement normally can start off with a requisition, okay, and you can start off with a requisition. So just like we normally process our requisition to either a negotiation or a purchase order, so both the steps are rather valid here as well. So you can either process a requisition into a purchase order, or you can process a requisition into a negotiation, right? And from there, from the purchase orders, that is where after the purchase orders are created against the supplier, we normally go about and then receive the products into our sub inventories, right? We normally perform the receiving. But unlike our normal scenario, the way this complex procurement slightly differs from your normal procurement is we don't perform any receiving as such in complex work procurement. So that is purely because receiving is something that is logically, rather that logically happens within the system here. So I'm not saying that we don't receive does not happen here. So there would be kind of a logical receipt that would happen in the application in the background, which we will anyways be saying. But an equivalent to that, we normally do something called work confirmation. Okay, so the one that you see on my screen, work confirmation is something that we normally do against a purchase order. So this is applicable only in the context of complex procurement. So when I say work confirmation, your work confirmation is, let's say, for a given schedule. So let's say you have hired a contractor for a professional service, right, for a consulting. So for a particular schedule within the stipulated time, what is the percentage of work your contractor will report? That exactly is your work confirmation. So let's say I have an order for $5,000 for professional service. So let's say they have completed 75% of work. So they reported using this work confirmation. So whatever work is getting confirmed, that is reported using this work confirmation. Okay, so this work confirmation in cloud here as such can happen in three different ways. So one is using the UI that we have a dedicated UI, create work confirmation. You can even navigate into it from our purchase orders. That is one way of handling it. So wherein your buyer will go ahead and then create the work confirmation. That's option one. The second option that we have is by means of the supplier portal. Okay. So let's assume that the supplier portal, supplier user logs into the supplier portal. Even the supplier user, I mean the supplier himself, he can also create the work confirmation at the supplier portal. So that is option number two. And the third way or the third option by which we can create the work confirmation is you can use web services using REST APIs, right? For third party using REST APIs, you can even create your work confirmations. Right? So once the work confirmation is created, we normally create the invoices, right? So unlike we normally do purchase orders, receipts, and then invoices. So here, slightly different from that. You create a work confirmation through either of those three ways that I just spoke about, and then you create the invoices. Okay, you create the invoices, you match it, you post it, and then you do the payment, right? So that's one way. In this context, we also have something called payment retention here. So we need to be aware of a couple of other fields here. So I would say them as retainage rates. Okay. So we have a couple of other attributes also here. So retainage, as the word itself says, right? You are trying to retain something here. So let's say that I'm trying to withhold some portion of my payment that is due to the contractor. Okay. So you're trying to withhold some portion of the amount from paying it to the contractor, just to ensure that your contractor finishes the work as agreed. Okay, so you retain some portion of the amount that has been agreed upon with the supplier. You hold it for a specific period of time, and only then you release it. So that is normally we call it as the retainage. So this particular retainage can be expressed in percentages. So we call it as the retainage rates. Okay, we have something called retainage rates. So this retainage percentages, your retainage amounts, these are something that we can normally capture in our procurement process also. So let's say when you are creating a negotiation, you have an option to capture that. When you are creating a purchase order, you can capture that. Okay. So based on that, based on the retainage that you are specifying in your purchase order, to that extent, the amount of money that is due for the supplier or the contractor will be withheld in the system automatically. Okay, so now we get to know what exactly this retainage is and retainage rates are. So in the context of invoice, we have something called retention release invoice. Okay, so let's say that you have a work confirmation reported for from specific percentage, you specify that. So to that extent, you clear the invoice to the supplier, you knock off the supplier liability. In addition to that, whatever uh, retention is there, right? So let's say $1,000 is what the system has computed, and that is retained. Rather, in other words, invoicing has not happened for that particular $1,000, which I also call it as the retention amount. For that particular retained amount, you create something called retention release invoice. Okay, let's say that you have some contractual obligations with the contractor, and once the contractor completes everything, you create a separate invoice, and that invoice has a type called retention release invoice. Okay. So unlike in our normal cases, we normally create an invoice called standard type, right? Invoice of type standard. Here in this case, whenever you create an invoice against your retention lines, you create an invoice of type called retention release invoice. Okay. So what it does, whatever amount that has been withheld and which is due for payment to the contractor, against that particular amount, you can go ahead and then create the retention release invoices. So thereby, whatever that has been retained, that would also be eligible for payment to the supplier. Okay, so those are the important terminologies as far as your complex procurement goes. So one is I just touched upon the work confirmation. We also have the retainage rates. You have the retention release invoices and so on. Right? So the typical process that you see on my screen, you can either start off with raising a requisition on the application, and then if you need negotiations, you can take the negotiation route. Okay, you enter into a negotiation, you create the RFQ documents, and from there you analyze and then award the negotiations. So we even saw this yesterday, right, as part of our sourcing or negotiation. After that, you process it into a purchase order. right? Or you can directly process your requisition into a purchase order. Once the purchase order is approved, you create your work confirmations. You don't create any receipts here as such. Receipts, they normally get created logically. There will be a logical receipt that will be happening in the application in the background. Okay, and even receipt number would also be stamped in the application. But otherwise, what we would be doing in the front end is creation of a work confirmation. Once the work confirmations are reported, we go ahead and then create the invoices. And if there is any retainage, so for that particular retainage amount, you go ahead and then create one more invoice of type release, retention release invoice. Okay, that's one thing. You then pay the invoice and then validate and then account the invoice finally. So this is a typical process flow of how your complex work procurement works in cloud. Right? Now, as part of this particular process, your complex work procurement, I have two scenarios to be demonstrated today. So the first scenario is going to be a simple procure to pay business scenario, wherein we will create a complex work purchase order. Okay, we will create a purchase order, and then we will create the work confirmations for the purchase order. We will also see how we can pay the supplier invoices. And then finally, we will see how we create the retention release invoices as well. So that would be the first demonstration. And the second demonstration, we have a scenario called smart sourcing business scenario. Okay. So when I say smart sourcing business scenario, this scenario would comprise of an integrated cycle. So it's going to be an integrated cycle. So when I say integrated cycle, we are going to start off by creating a requisition and self-service procurement module. We then get into the sourcing model, right? What we do is we process the requisitions into a negotiation. So thereby we enter into the sourcing module. We then create a contract out of the negotiation there within the sourcing module. So from there, we create our purchasing document. So this is going to be a complex scenario. Okay, we normally call it as an integrated cycle or a smart sourcing business scenario. So we will see how this solution cuts across your SSP, your sourcing, your contracts, your procurement module, and so on. Right. So that's going to be the second scenario. So, and this is the first scenario. If you see, this is the business case. Whatever is captured here, we're just going to do it in the application directly. Right. So this is just a continuation of what we saw as part of our process flow. Right? And this is the life cycle with the stakeholders who performs what kind of an activity here. So who will create the complex purchase order, and then once it is approved, you create the work confirmation, and then create the invoices. After the invoice is created, so you then go about the amount that has been withheld. For the amount that has been withheld, you create the retention release invoices. Okay, that's the final step. And again, retention release invoices, you can also create partially also. So let's say you want to block further amount from there. Okay, you can only create retention release invoice for a partial amount. So that is also allowed. Right? So yeah, the typical life cycle is also just summarized here. Okay, one small difference that you might see is you don't see the receipts here. And in addition to that, you would see something called retention here. Okay, but otherwise it is a normal procurement process. So by now we know the applicability of this type of procurement, complex work procurement, where exactly we use this, and how is this, or rather how this is different from our normal procurement scenario, and a couple of touch points around the retention, your work confirmation, your retention release invoices, and so on, right? So with this as the base, we have also summarized the process steps, the configurations that are relevant to this particular procurement model, right? And so that sums up what I wanted to cover as part of this first scenario. And with this inputs, what we will do is we'll get onto the application. We'll try to demonstrate this entire process flow from scratch. We'll also try to understand the various configurations that are relevant to this, and then we will run through the entire process flow. So let me see if there are any questions. This would be equivalent to field glass. What is this field glass? Sorry, I'm not clear on that. This is also kind of a procurement, okay, just that you use it for complex contracts, wherein you have considerable delivery times, okay, and then payment terms, and right for complex contracts, especially in the EPC industries, right? So let's say even if you are pitching for a digital transformation for cloud procurement, right? So your client, what they will do, they will look at how many of them are architects, how many of them are certified consultants. So you may need to provide your evidences and so on. So what happens is, as part of the project, you might have various phases, right? So let's say you have the resource loading phase, you might have the validation phase, you have the mobilization, you have the UAT phase, you have the training, implementation, and so on. So what happens is the client can negotiate this. So let's say your total implementation cost, maybe for example, for instance, is $100,000. So what you can do is by creating this complex order, you can just apportion this to release them based on the phases. So based on each and every phase completion, only on the completion of a specific phase, you go about and you go there and then release the amount that is due to be paid, right? So this is where we normally use this complex procurement, right? So yeah, complex include material installed, assets and services. Yeah, we are going to see a typical case of a professional services. Yes, we're going to see that exactly. Right. Are there any specific subscriptions needed? No, not really. No specific subscriptions. Now, as such, nowadays we're getting it as a bundle, right? So you don't need any specific subscription for this, but you need certain configurations that you need to do for this to work. Okay. Yeah, anyways, we'll cover that. But to your question, there is no specific subscription. Okay. Does buyer create this retention release invoice manually after all work confirmation completed? No, it would be your payable team that would be handling this, right? So buyer may not be creating this. Buyer's role might be in processing requisitions into purchase orders, negotiations, and so on. But yeah, in reality, invoices would be done by the payable clerk or so on. So someone of that grade, right? Yeah, but typically once all the work is completed, and if you want to release the amount that has been withheld, so that is where you go there and then create your release retention release invoices. Okay, that's right. Can supplier submit retention invoice in supplier portal? Yes. Yeah, retention invoices, provided you give the access to the supplier portal user, you can create that. That's allowed. Can this be connected to project deliverables? I'm not very sure. I'll have to check and update. Okay. Not very sure if this can be connected to project deliverables. Fine. So let me take you to the application. Let's get started with the process flow. I have a use case for our demonstration. So that use case is going to be on this slide. So let me quickly show that. I think I have it somewhere here. Yeah. Okay. So this particular use case, what I have is, it's going to be a use case where I want to perform a teardown of a conference room. Okay. I have a conference room. I want to tear down that particular conference room and then rebuild this conference room. Okay, that is my use case. So as part of, so I would say, in short, I would say it's going to be a refurbishment of my conference room. So I want to refurbish my conference room. In the process, I have two different steps. One is the conference room tear down. I tear down the entire conference room. And then I also have something called rebuilding, right? So that's the next step. So these two steps that you see here, I'm going to model them as two different line items or service items, description-based items in my purchase order. So I'm going to capture this. In the process, I have a specific line amount. So the first line is for $10,000. Second line is for $10,000. So thereby the total contract value is going to be $20,000. I see a couple of fields here. Okay, retention percentage and maximum retainage values. Okay, so this is some of the constraints that I have here. So the retention that I can have is I can have maximum 14% for this line. Okay, so 14% of this 10,000, it comes to 1400. That's the retention value that you see here in column number D. And for the second line, for the rebuilding, uh, I can retain 18% of the distribution amount. So which means 18% of 10,000 works out to 1800. And that is what you see in this particular row. Okay. So the retention percentage and retention value, now we are aware. So retention is something I'm giving a percentage here. So when it is applied on the distribution amount, you get your retention value. Now, I also impose a condition in the application wherein I say that at any point of time, the maximum that I can retain on this line is only 1200. Similarly, for the second line, for rebuilding, I say I can retain only $2,000. Okay, so this is the condition. Now we will model this in the application. We'll create a complex procurement purchase order. We'll try to see how the order is built with all these attributes. And then again, I'll come back to this page, okay? Because we need to discuss few more things on this, okay? So now it is very early to talk about this. But what I'll do is, I'll model this exactly in the same way it is available here into the application. We'll create a complex procurement purchase order. We'll add these two lines. We'll capture the distribution amounts. We'll also capture the retention details, right? So let's get into the application. Let me log in as Calvin Roth, who is my buyer here. Will there be only one final retention release invoice for each PO, or there can be multiple based on work confirmation? It depends, Ravindra. Okay. So as I said earlier, right? So if even within the retention release invoice, let's say I want to create I want to release only 500 of the $1,000 that has been retained. So in that case, I'll create one retention release invoice, and then I can come back and then create one more retention release invoice. So the answer to your question is, it need not be essentially one. You can even go for more than one invoices. So even within the amount that has been withheld, if you want to release again partial amount, absolutely yes, it's possible. Okay. So just that system will take it say, let's say you have two lines. So it will take based on the distribution there. Okay. So whatever you want to retain, that will be withheld again. So it will be released only to the extent of the amount that you are matching there. Okay. Yeah. Now, we'll see that how we do it. Okay. So let me log in as Calvin Roth. Uh, okay. So I've logged in as Calvin Roth, and let me start creating the complex procurement purchase order. So how do I do that? Go to the procurement, just like we create a normal purchase order, right? Same navigation. Go to procurement. You can even come from the navigator, select the procurement offering. Within the procurement offering, you need to select this purchase orders here. So select the purchase orders. Yeah. Now let's go to the purchase orders. So select the task, the same task, what we call it as a create order, right? So select the create order task. So we need to be very careful with the document style that we select here. So unlike for normal purchasing, we normally select this purchase order as the document style, right? And likewise, we had even seen in multiple cases wherein if it was a consignment, right, on day one, we selected a consignment order and so on. So likewise, let's select the most appropriate document style in the context of complex procurement. So since this is going to be complex work order with work confirmation, let me select the same document style here. So the one on the top is the document style that we need to be selecting. So let me select complex work order with work confirmation. Okay, let me select that. I have my procurement BU and requisitioning BU as US1 business unit. I also have a specific supplier called Lee Supplies. So let me select the supplier here. So thereby you would see the site and contact defaulted. So Ryan Lee is the guy who is the supplier portal user. He is the supplier contact, or I would also call him the supplier administrator. Fine. Let's click on the create button. So we will be taken to the complex procurement page, the complex purchase order page. So based on the document style, right? So since we have selected complex work order with work confirmation, we would be having certain fields relevant to the document style that we have selected. Okay, we will see that. Are the styles seeded? Yes, styles are seeded. You would have some seeded styles already available. I'll show that. In addition to that, you can even create your own custom styles also. So what you recommend is we normally advise to duplicate the existing document styles and then make changes on top of it. Okay. Is there any setup to enable this feature? Yeah, I'll show you all the configurations that are relevant to this. Okay. We have a bunch of configurations even for this. I'll cover that. One could be your document style. Yeah, we have approvals. We'll see that. Will it have same approvals as PO approvals? Yeah, we have an approval for work confirmation, but for purchase orders, it will be similar to your purchase orders. That's right. Okay. But we have a dedicated approval for work confirmation. I'll cover that. Right? Now, at the purchase order page, you have the complex work order with work confirmation. That's my document style. Let's scroll down. Most importantly, let's capture the line details. So click on the plus button here. So what are my line details? So we are just trying to replicate this particular scenario, right? So let me just copy whatever is available here. Okay, I'll just copy this. So the first step is going to be conference room tear down. So let me enter this conference room tear down as my first description. And another point to be noted here is this complex procurement does not support, rather is not supported for inventory lines. Okay, you can just enter your description based purchases. Fine. So inventory lines are not supported here. So I enter a specific category for this. I have a category also. Let me enter that particular category. I remember. I think that category is yeah. I think that is contractor expense. Yeah. Yeah. Let me select the contractor expenses and what else we have? Let me show the base price. Yeah. So base price, what is our base price? Base price is distribution amount. So for the first line, that is $10,000, right? So exactly capture the same thing here. Capture the base price as $10,000 here. Okay. So what else we have? And I don't have any discount. Okay. I think base price is captured. And what else we have? So go to the schedule tab. Within the schedule tab, you might see uh, type. Okay. So type, you have lump sum and rate. You have two different types here. So what exactly is this lump sum and what is this rate? Okay. So if you select this as lump sum, what happens is based on the stages of your work completion, the payment will be released. In case you select rate, so it's going to be a T&M basis, okay? Time and material. So based on the units of work that is getting completed, the payment will be released. Okay, that's the difference. Now coming back to the lines, I have captured the line here. I have the first line here. Now the second line can just be created by entering, clicking on the duplicate, and then you can just copy most of the information. But in case you want to capture them one by one, you can go there and then enter the details and then capture the details. Okay. Now within the first line, I also have a specific field called retainage rate and maximum retainage amount. Okay, you see this here. So these two fields, based on the document style that we have selected, these fields are enabled. So this is exactly what I have in this Excel, right? Retainage rate. So for the first line, that is 14%. So let me enter the retainage rate as 14%. Rate is in percentage. And maximum retainage amount is $1,200. Okay, I'll capture this. Fine. So these two are now entered. So this is a complex procurement purchase order, right? So I've captured the retainage rates, my maximum retainage amounts, and I also have the description of this line, the base price and the category. Now, likewise, let's add the second line also as part of our refurbishment of the conference room. So what is the second line? Second line is conference room rebuilding, right? So let's capture this also as part of the second line. And this also falls under the same category, contractor expense. Let's say this is contractor expense. And my base price is again $10,000. What's the distribution amount for this line? That's also $10,000. I'll capture that. And what else is there? We need to capture the retainage rate and the maximum retainage amount, right? So let's enter them also. So for this line, the retainage rate is 18%. So that's what we are saying. And the maximum retainage amount that we are saying here is 2000. Okay. See, these are all some data that I have built as part of our use case. Okay. So I'm just replicating them in the application. The implication of this, how this is getting considered by the system, how the values are defaulted, how the invoices are getting created. So those are something that we will see after we complete the work confirmation. Okay. So I will discuss about that once I complete the work confirmation. Right. So let's park any of your questions around this for a while. I'll anyways come to this. Fine. Now, so maximum retainage amount have entered 18 and 2000. And 14 and 1200. Okay. So I've just captured column C and column E. Column D you don't need to capture because that's automatically computed based on these two columns, right? So based on 14% of 10,000, this is the amount, and 18% of 10,000, this is the amount. The system internally computes this column D. Okay. So what we are giving to the system is column C and column E. This is what is captured in the application. Fine. Now, so this data is captured. I have the line details here. The line details as I wanted, that is now entered. Now you can save this entry here, save this purchase order. Thereby you should get a purchase order number there. What happened? Yeah, I think I have it. So I have the purchase order number. It is US 164,899. So let me make a note of it. US 164,899 is my complex purchase order. Okay, complex work order with work confirmation. I have this order now. Let's go ahead and then submit this particular purchase order. So once you submit this, this will be routed for approval. So it will follow its own delegation of authority, just like your normal purchase order. So in case you have any approver, it will be routed to the approver. Once the document is approved, you can expect this particular purchase order to be set to open state, right? So let me see if there are any other additional questions. Can these lines be submitted through SSP non-catalog or local catalog? Yeah, SSP is supported. Okay. The second use case is going to be a SSP case. I'm going to use self-service procurement. I'm going to create a requisition and only then process it into a negotiation. Okay. You can even process it into a purchase order. That is also fine. So we will see that. So SSP is supported. Right. And then what is that? Can there be a case for asset instead of contractor expense category? Now, these we normally term it as a contractor expense, right? So why do you want to say this as an asset? Okay. What is the next question? Our contract terms. Please give your complete question. I'm not able to get that. Sorry. Could you please confirm the next? No inventory items are allowed in complex POs. Yeah, this is only for fixed price services. Okay. It's only for description based items. That is correct. Okay. Lump sum type, as I said, lump sum is it's only based on the stages of work that you are completing. Okay. And the rate is based on the units of work that you are completing. That is the difference. Okay. So whether you release once all the amount is once all is received, that purely depends. Right? So you may want to withhold some more portion of amount before paying the contractor, right? Maybe you want to create only a partial invoice based on whatever has been withheld. That's completely left to us. Or you may want to create one retention release invoice at one shot. That is also allowed. Okay. If you are doing a partial release receipt, you can go for partial invoice creation. Okay. That's fine. So let me now move on. So what else is there? I think there is a question for what is this? Retyping my question in case you missed out. Does complex purchasing also support deposit and recoupment? Yeah, I guess recoupment is supported. They have not checked it anyways, but we can certainly confirm you. Okay, you can just put a question maybe in the Q&A forum also. I can certainly check if there is supported and I can update you. Okay, I believe recoupment is supported. Yeah, yeah. So contract terms can be added. Yes. So once we create the purchase order, I'll show you that. Okay. So I'll show you contract terms are also something that we can add there. Okay. You can certainly add it. I'll show you the purchase. Let's verify the purchase order. Let's wait for the PO there. I think our PO number is yeah, US 164899. Yeah, purchase order is approved. Okay. Uh, Conference room tear down and conference room rebuild. We have two different lines. $10,000. Okay. Yeah, you can reference a master contract. Okay, contract terms can also be added. See the second use case. I'll show you that. Okay, from the SSP, as I said, as part of smart sourcing, I'll show you how we can create a contract, how we can add your lines to the contract, and then finally create the purchase order. Okay, contract terms can also be added. We'll see that. Now, this purchase order is now approved. Now, what is the next step in this case? We need to create something called work confirmation, right? Because we're not going to create any receipt against this particular purchase order. So how do I do the work confirmation? Create the work confirmation. As I said, we have three different ways. One could be your UI here. You click on the actions. You have an option called create work confirmation. So this is one way of doing it. Or you can also use supplier portal, or you can use your REST APIs. Now let's use this option within the UI. Click on the create work confirmation against this purchase order. It will take you to a new UI here. Okay. And what we can do is you can report the amount of work that has been completed. So as I said, work confirmation is for a given schedule, what is the percentage of work that has been completed? So your contractor will report this. Right? So let's assume that I am the buyer. I am reporting this now. Okay. I have logged in as a buyer. I am reporting the work confirmation now. See the contract amount to date, $20,000. So ideally, what you would expect 20,000. Let's say if I finish 100% of the work, you would expect 20,000 to be released for payment, right? So because your work confirmation is the basis for your invoice. So whatever work is completed, you go there and then you create your invoices, right? So let's say I add my work confirmation details here. Click on the plus button. Let me select both the lines, scroll down, and then click on add to work confirmation. So this gets added in the background here. Now close and come out of this page. If you see here, you see both the lines, the conference room tear down and the rebuild lines. You have both the scheduled amounts as $10,000 each. Now you have an option to specify the percentage of work that has been completed. So let's say if you say 50% of work is completed, then the amount will be automatically calculated as 50% of 10,000, which will be $5,000 here. Okay. And likewise for the second line. So if you say 50%, 5,000 will be displayed here. So if you select progress percentage as 25%, $2,500 will be uh, rather 2,500 will be your amount completed during this particular period, and thereby that amount will be eligible for invoicing. So let's assume that, right? So now, as of now, let's say I say this is as 100%, and I'll say this one is also as 100%. So now I entered this. So what is that? After I gave 100%, because ideally there is nothing to finish here, okay? But you see the amount considered, amount that is completed, it is equivalent to our scheduled amount, $10,000, $10,000. That is fine. Now, towards the right side here, you see something called projected retainage. Okay, even though 100% is completed, system says that you can rather system will retain $1,800 as part of this line, and as part of the second line, system is going to retain $1,200. So let's check that. So if it is really going to happen, see here. Now, if you click on the receipt date as today's date and just hit on the save, After you click on the save, scroll down, observe the data here. The projected retainage during this period is $3,000. So 3,000 is already retained by the system. The current payment that is due to the supplier is only 17,000. So that is because system has withheld $3,000 from paying without paying. Okay, so 3,000 is now withheld. Only $17,000 is eligible for payment. So now let's analyze why, or rather how this has been computed by the application. So before that, what I'll do is I'll just submit this particular work confirmation, because work confirmation, we have a dedicated approval. So you have something called manage work confirmation approvals. So based on the delegation of authority, that has to get approved. Okay, just like we have for our requisitions and our purchase orders, we have a separate task for work confirmation approvals also. So now I have entered the receipt date. I have specified the percentage of work completion. So I also see that there is a retainage of $3,000 against this particular period, even though 100% is completed. Thereby, the current payment that is due to the supplier is only $17,000. So let me click on the submit here. I would ideally expect this to get approved in a while. Before that, let's go there and then understand how this 3,000 got computed, right? So now if you come back to the Excel, so the retention value, if you see here, for the first line, it is just based on this column B and C, right? So 14% of 10,000, it comes to 1,400, and 18% of 10,000 comes to 1,800. Ideally, we would have expected this to be withheld in the application. I mean, the sum of these two is $3,200. That is what I would have expected. But what happened now? What we saw was a case where system withheld $3,000 alone. So why is that 3,000? The reason is, for the first line, if you observe, the maximum retainage value, the constraint that we have put in the purchase order, right? So we captured the maximum retainage value as $1,200. So the least of these two is $1,200. So even though I can retain $1,400 as per the retention percentage, the maximum that can be withheld during a specific period is only $1,200. So system has considered this, the lowest among these two. So 1,200 is considered. Similarly, in the case of the second line, in case of the rebuilding line, even though you have 1,800, the maximum is 2,000, but I am comfortable with this. 1,800 is less than 2,000, so system will consider this 1,800. So if you sum this up, right, 1,200 and 1,800, it comes to 3,000. And that is exactly which was withheld by the system. So the projected retainage $3,000. Okay, the rest of the $17,000 is now eligible for billing. Okay, so that's how this is getting computed. They say a question. Work confirmation approval is the same as purchase order. No, not really. We have a separate approval for work confirmation also. So just like you have for requisition purchase orders, right? So on same lines, you have a dedicated task for manage work confirmation approvals. The task is different, but the functionality, like the approval mechanism is quite similar, okay, to our PO. But just that you have a dedicated task for that, right? Can a decentralized user complete the work confirmation, or does the buyer have to do it? See, suggested approach, or in reality, normally work confirmation, since the access is within the purchase order level, right? So normally a buyer would be doing it. So that's the most, I would say that's the approach. But even if your procurement is decentralized, right? So I think decentralized users can also do this. Okay, so that's one way. As I said, you have a couple of other ways also. So you may have your REST services, or you can also explore the supplier portal. So a couple of other options are also there. Okay, so it's not restricted to the buyer, but even your users, if your procurement is decentralized, right? So users can also be doing this. So just that the purchase order will be exposed. That's where I said buyer will be doing it. Now, yeah, so now by this time we know how these rates are computed. Let's quickly see if our work confirmation is approved. Click on refresh. It takes time. Okay, US 164,899. It's taking time. Our work confirmation approvals configured in procurement or in BPM. We configure it in procurement. Okay, I'll show you that. There is a dedicated task for that. Okay, this is still pending approval. Normally it takes some time before it is approved. Let's wait for a while. In the meantime, let me quickly show you all the configurations related to this. Okay, let me log in as another user, Casey Brown. I'll show you the configurations related to this. Okay, and then we will see the rest of the steps. So it should get approved. It's taking time. Yeah. Go to the same setup and maintenance. I'll first show the approval since we see many questions around the approvals. Let's finish off the approval part. Go to the procurement here, select the procurement offering, and the functional area would be your approval management. Okay, select the approval management and click on the all task here. You would see a separate task called manage work confirmation approvals. Okay, scroll down. You would see something called manage work confirmation approvals. So again, you have the same serial, parallel, all those routings and so on, right? So first responder and so on. So here I have the serial routing enabled, terms approval serial. So likewise, based on your business, you can have your own delegation of authorities. So you can configure the work confirmation approvals. Based on this, your work confirmation will be approved. So let me quickly see if my work confirmation is approved now. Yes. So by this time now, this is approved now. So the work confirmation is approved. So before that, let me finish off the other configurations also. Okay, we'll finish off that and then we'll continue this flow. So the other configuration is our document styles, right? So I was referring to document styles. Where is it available? So it's available within your procurement. Go to the procurement foundation functional area. Within that, you will see something called manage document styles. Okay. If you're not able to see it here, click on this all task here. So thereby all the tasks should be listed here. So the name of the particular task is manage document styles. Yeah, here it is. Click on this. Yeah, here is where you see all the document styles. So you would see some seeded ones also. In case you need a custom one, as I said, select the specific seeded one, hit on the duplicate, and then create your own document styles. So just that the UI, the attributes that you see here would differ from each and every document style that you see here. So whereas if you remember, we saw consignment on day one, you had a specific section for consignment terms. So that may not be applicable for our complex work orders. So you have retainage and retainage related fields within your complex procurement, right? Say. So likewise, we have multiple document styles within the application. You can create one in case you want, right? And the last configuration that I wanted to show is within the same procurement foundation functional area, you have a task called manage common options for payables and procurement. Okay. So the main reason why I have come here is you need to capture the retainage account in the application. So if you see here, there is a field called retainage here, right? So within the common options for payables and procurement, you have your retainage accounts. So you need to capture a retainage account, and that is absolutely required. So please make sure this is also checked in the application. Yeah, I think I can select one, maybe our US one entity. I'll quickly show you how the values are captured. So this is my retainage account. Okay. So I have a retainage account that is already captured here. You just click on, you see, this is the retained accounts payable. So this is captured here. Now click on cancel. Okay. So now we know the approvals of work confirmation. We know the document styles. We also need to set up the retainage account at the common options. Right. So our work confirmation is now approved, and we also know how the computation is arrived at, right? So how the $3,000 got retained. Now, what is the next step? We will go ahead and then create the invoices, right? We'll have to create the invoices. But before that, let's quickly see our purchase order also. So how we have our purchase order at this point of time, complex purchase order, right? Click on refresh. So you see here the complex work order with work confirmation. This is closed for receiving. I haven't performed any receiving here. If you hit on the order life cycle here, you would see that the work confirmation, the receipt number, a logical receipt would have already happened in the system, and that number would be stamped here in the order life cycle. So let's quickly see that. Let's review that. Yeah, you observe here, total completed is 20,000. If you scroll down, you see the total completed is 20,000. The work confirmation number is stamped here. You see a receipt number that is listed here. So we haven't performed any receiving, but still internally there will be a receipt that will be generated in the application, and that is captured here. Now, what about the invoicing? We can create our invoices. Let's go ahead and then create our invoices. Okay. At present, we don't see any value here. Okay. Nothing related to retainage and so on. What is invoiced and so on. Now, the total completed to date is $20,000. Let's proceed with the invoice creation. Okay. I'll have one more window here. Go to the payables. Click on invoices. Click on the create invoice. I have the purchase order number. Copy the purchase order number. Navigation for work confirmation page. Within the purchase order, please click on the actions at the top. You would see an option called create work confirmation. That is one thing. If not, within the purchasing landing page, right, wherein you have all the infolettes, you have a dedicated task called manage work confirmation. So you can visit here that particular task also. Okay, that's the navigation. Can I have a service item code for a complex PO with work confirmation? Yes, that's what we are doing now. Okay, a description based purchase. We cannot have an inventory item there for complex purchase. Okay. Now, let me enter the purchase order number. Just do a tab out. Let me designate this particular invoice as purchase order number -1, because -2, next time I will create the invoice for retention release. Okay. So this is a standard invoice. So observe here the type of the invoice that is selected here is standard invoice. I'm creating a standard invoice. Let me click on the match invoice lines here. Let's match this. Okay. Most importantly, enter the amount. So now if you observe, I'll enter the entire amount here. Okay. $20,000. I'll enter the entire amount. Hit on the match invoice lines. You select both the lines here. You see both the lines. Tear down and rebuild lines. Select the lines and then click on apply and click on OK. Let's go back to the invoice page. And within the invoice page, yeah. Now just hit on save here. And scroll down. So when you scroll down, observe that I gave the total amount, matching amount as 20,000. The matching is performed for being done for 20,000, but there is a retainage of $3,000 in the application. Okay, this 3,000 is the withheld amount. You need to create a retention release invoice for this particular amount. Okay, no other way. You'll have to create a retention release invoice for $3,000. This 17,000, which is due now, based on the work confirmation that was reported, I'm going to create the invoice and pay the invoice. So what do we do next? We go ahead and then do the validation. Validate this particular invoice. And then you post this invoice to the GL. Okay. So we will complete that activity. We'll again go back to our purchase order and then see how the details are reflected. Right. Yeah. Now we'll finish off the validation is completed. Yeah, I think given posting is also not required, I can quickly show you the oh, I think I've done it here. Okay. No problem. Let's go to payables. Where is it? Yeah. go to the manage invoices. Let me query that invoice here. So if you have completed the validation, that is more than enough. We can see the reflection at the purchase order level. Okay. So let me query this once. Let me try to post it to GL. Possibly that guy didn't have access. Calvin Roth. Okay. So now I can even post it. Okay. Post to the ledger. This is already validated. Okay. I'll do the posting to the ledger. Yeah. Accounting is completed. So we have completed the accounting and you can even perform the payment also. Okay. I'll not do the payment as of now. So you just observe the liability account. You see the accruals. Okay. Accrual and the liability. And likewise, you have the retainage on the other hand. Okay. The retainage amount that we saw there, right? So you have a retainage of $1,800 and $1,200. Okay. So liability debit and retainage credit. Fine. So we have this details. Now let's go back and then check our complex purchase order. So how exactly is that? So I can go to this complex. I just visited these recent items. Okay. Uh, let's observe how the life cycle is now. So like this. Yeah. See there, there's a lot of entries here. So now you see the invoice is 20,000. Retainage is 3,000. $3,000 is withheld. And this has not been released. So that's where it says retainage released is $0. Okay. And if you scroll down, you see the invoice number here updated. It is validated and accounted, but we haven't paid yet. Okay. But that is fine. Now you see the matching amount, but the retainage is $3,000. $3,000 is already withheld. And how do you release this retainage? You need to create one more invoice, but choose a type called retention release invoice. Okay. Only when you do that, there will be an entry here, retainage released. Whatever you are releasing, that will be updated here. Okay. Now, what I do here is, let me go back to our KC Brown login. I'll now create one more invoice of the type retention release invoice. Okay. So as I said, now we are done with the first part. Invoice is created. Based on the amount that has been withheld, I'm going to create one more invoice. That invoice type is going to be retention release invoice. Okay. So let me click on create invoice. And I'll populate the same purchase order number. Just do a tab out. And this time I'll specify the number as -2. Okay. Because I'm going to release the retention. See, here I have an option. If you want to create a retention release invoice for the entire $3,000, go ahead and do it. Or again, if you want to do a partial invoice creation, absolutely possible. Okay. Let me say I'll create an invoice for $2,000. Okay. Not for the entire 3,000. Most importantly, select the correct invoice type. I need to select a type called retainage release. Okay. This is the type I'm selecting. Previously, I selected standard. Now you need to select retainage release. Right? Select this particular type. Scroll to the left side. You have line matching. You have a couple of options. So one, I can select this release by PO schedule. Okay, and click on this match. When you click on this, right, so it will take you to this matching page. So select both the lines. Okay, just observe here. 1,200 out of the 1,200 is now released. For the second line, since our release is only 2,000, only 800 is considered. So the sum is 2,000 here, fine. And still again, $1,000 will still be retained. Okay, this is a case of a partial invoice again. Now click on release. And then save this. If you scroll down again, see there, you are creating a retention release invoice for only $2,000. It's not for $3,000. Just click on the validate. Okay. So I have completed the validation. Go back to our purchase order. Click on done. Requery the purchase order again. Okay. So what is our purchase order number? US 164899. Okay. I think that's the one. Yes. Okay. Click on enter. You should see the retention release invoice details also captured in the purchase order. See here. See the details. Now, if you would observe, the retention is 3,000. Retainage released is only 2000. 2000 is only released. Okay. We have just validated it. Okay. So we still have thousand more dollars, $1,000 that can still be released because thousand is still retained. Okay. So this is how you can model this complex procurement. Okay. In cloud. So in the process, we try to understand work confirmation, your retention related concepts, how we create the normal invoice, standard invoice, as well as the retention release invoices. Okay. So in case you have any complex procurement scenario wherein you have one for professional services, consulting services, and so on, right? You can model it this exactly in the same way and then get this. Fine. So that was all I wanted to cover as part of the first scenario. We still have 40 minutes time. So what I'll do is we'll finish up the other scenario also. That's the smart sourcing scenario. Should take around 30-35 minutes and then we will wind up on time. Okay. Before that, let me see if there are any questions. Could you please explain a little bit about the relationship between AP invoice and the PO work confirmation? Is there any reference in AP to the work confirmation number? Is it possible to create an invoice without the creation of the work confirmation in this scenario? No, no. In this case, as I said, invoice creation is purely dependent on the work confirmation only. So based on the amount of work that has been confirmed, okay, that you enter at the work confirmation, only to that extent you would be able to create the invoice. And again, the retention rates that we specify, right? So that will also be factored in by the application. Okay. So there is a relationship based on whatever you enter there, and they're also taking into account the retention rates and the maximum retainage amounts that are set up. That will also be factored in, and only the amount that is eligible for billing will be totally based on what you have confirmed. Okay, so that's where I say it's directly dependent on that. And then what do we have? At what point will the retention release invoice be done? Yeah, ideally, it can happen after I clear the work information because that's 100% there, right? So if you want to check it out, right, you can give some partial percentages there in terms of work confirmation and then see how the invoices are also getting created. Even your work confirmation, right, based on the percentage of work that you give, you give 60%, 70%, and then see how the percentage as well as your retainage rates that you capture, both will be factored. And based on that, when you create an invoice, the invoice amount will be much lesser than your total line amount. Okay. What is the purpose of retainage? Retainage is, say, in case of any complex contract, right? You may not want to create an invoice for the entire amount at one shot. Okay. So maybe it's a complex project and you have longer lead times. So it's going on for a considerable amount of time. Maybe you want to release the amount in phases, right? So in those cases, what we do is you retain a specific portion of the amount. You withhold that amount without paying your contractor. Let's say you have an order, maybe an order for $10,000 in this case. Okay, you want to release only a specific portion at a point of time. So if you enable those retainage related fields and you capture those values in the purchase order, system will compute the amount that it can retain, and in turn, what happens? The invoice will be paid only to the extent of the work that has been completed. So particularly handy when you want to withhold some amount and only pay that once all the work is completed. Okay, that's where we use these retainages. Retainage release amount calculation. Yeah, I think I told that. If you observe the screen, in the first case, retention value is based on these two fields. Okay, 14% of 10,000 that's coming here, and 18% of 10,000 is 1,800. And maximum retainage value I am imposing in the system, saying that at any point of time, I can have only 1,200. So how the system will consider is, it will look at these two columns. It will take the lowest among this. So for the first line, 1,400 and 1,200, 1,200 is the lowest one. Okay, it will take this. Second line, it will take this 1,800. So if you sum up the ones in yellow, right, 1,200 and 1,800, 3,000 is the total retainage amount in my case. Okay, 17,000, I am eligible for creating an invoice. Okay, fine. What else we have? Yeah, rate and lump sum I have already covered. Okay, so that is fine. Yeah, progress claims here. That is what we call it as complex procurement. Okay, progress-based payments, right? So we call it as progress payments. So we are allowing this progress payments if your line amount, line type is amount. Okay, so if your purchase basis of line type is amount, right? We normally allow this progress payments. So based on the progress of work that has been completed, you are creating the invoice and you are paying your contractor. Okay, as simple as that. The accrual will be generated based on the work confirmation. Correct. How is the $800 calculated? No, I never said 800. I said 1200 and 1800. So 1200 and 1800 is $3,000. So $3,000 is deducted from your 20,000 and 17,000 is what the invoice is eligible for. So now you know here, right? 14% of 10,000 is 1400, 18% of 10,000 is 1800. Okay. I believe there is no confusion here. No, retention release invoice. Yeah, see, I think you're asking release. Purposefully, I have released only $2,000. Okay. So my first line was 1200. My second line was 1800. You see my screen. So what I did was I released only $2,000. Now, if I say $2,000, what system will do is it will release the first line, 1,200. From the second line, it will not release the entire 1800. So it will make sure that the sum is 2000. So for me to make the sum as 2000, I need to release only 800. So system has considered 800, right? So if you sum this up, it will come to 2000. And now if you sum this is 3000. So the rest 1000 is still eligible for invoicing. Okay. So that is still withheld. That's how it is. I hope this is clear now. Fine. In the current screen, fields invoiced in the work confirmation are zero. Why? Does it run the need any concurrent? No concurrence as such. Fields invoiced in the work confirmation are zero. No, we invoiced for $17,000. I'm not sure what you are referring to here. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll move on to the second topic. Okay. So in the interest of time, I'll move on to the smart sourcing scenario. So if you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A or you can even put it in the forum. We'll check that. Now, the next scenario is going to be our smart sourcing scenario, an integrated cycle. So integrated cycle, as I said, we are going to start off from self-service procurement. I'll then take you to the negotiation. We'll again come back to our contracts, and then finally we will create our purchase order. Okay. So let me go to the application. Let me log in. Yeah, I'll open another instance for this dev level. Okay, so my Calvin Roth. Okay, I'll log in as Calvin Roth in dev level. We'll start with creating a requisition. Okay, I have a specific use case again for this. Okay, this use case is, let's say we are into construction. Okay, as I said, this is a integrated cycle, right? So I have engaged a engineering company for some professional services. Okay, maybe let's say for construction of a building, and I have mutually agreed upon these below mentioned design phases. I have 4 different phases that you see on my screen. And this is the architecture fees. I have a specific amount. And don't worry about this architecture fees, okay? This anyways, this sums up to 100. We are nowhere, we are going to capture this anywhere in the application. So just ignore this. And we have the amount against each of the lines. I have the retention percentages, retention value and maximum retainage value, just like we did in the previous case, okay? I have 4 different lines. So this is a case of an engineering company. I have engaged them for professional services for construction of a building. So these are some of the phases that I have agreed, and this is the code they have provided. So what I'll do is I'll model this exactly in the application in a similar way. I'll create a requisition this time. Okay. I'll start off from self-service procurement. I'll start off by creating a requisition. We will then take it into the negotiation route. Okay. I'll take it to the negotiation. I'll create a request for quotation. From there, I'll go to the contracts module. I'll create a contract. So I just wanted to show this entire integration there. So how everything is tied up here. Okay. So let's see how we will model this. I'll take you to dev level instance, and what we will do is, yeah, so I've logged in dev level. Let me create a purchase requisition. Click on purchase requisitions. Okay. Now click on the more task. Go to the enter requisition line. I say this is a fixed price services. Okay. My line is this one. Okay. Schematic design and construction cost estimate. I'm just trying to capture it here. And then my category name is, let's say, contractor expense. And the amount that has been agreed is $3,000. Okay. So I capture that. And the negotiation required? Yes, I need negotiation. Okay. I'm going to take the negotiation route here. I'm not going to directly create a purchase order. So this is my first line. Okay. So fixed price services. Let me add this to the cart. So likewise, let me add other 3 lines also. Okay. I'm just adding them from scratch. So this is design, development, and construction drawings. And the category name, let it be the same, contractor expense. And this amount is $5,000. Let's say negotiation required. Add this to the cart. I also have a couple of other lines as well. So the third line is construction documents and design drawing submission. Okay. So this is another phase. So likewise, let me capture the amount as $7,000. And finally, I'll say this was negotiation required. Add to cart. And one last phase is my bidding and administration. So this is what comes out to $5,000. Okay. Click on negotiation required. Add to cart. So let's review our cart and then submit this particular requisition. Okay. So we have added 4 different lines, service based, description based lines. And let's review these lines. So these are exactly a replica of what you see here on my screen, right? So I just captured those phases. I captured the amounts. The retention percentage and maximum values, this would be captured at the negotiation document. Okay. You don't have a provision to capture it at the requisition level. You can instead capture it at your RFQ, or you can even capture it at your purchase order. So purchase order, I have anyway shown you in the previous demo. So now I will show you how we can capture it in our RFQ document, right? Now, I have the details here. So the requisition is now going to be submitted. I have captured all the details here. So let me call this as, what is that? Design phases. Design RFP, whatever it is. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and then save this. So I have a requisition number 204265. Let me make a note of it. Okay. And at the same time, I can also scroll down. I'll quickly see this and I will submit this. Okay. So this requisition has been submitted. Okay. Click on this 204265. So this is pending approval. Okay. So it will normally go for a couple of approvals because the approval amount is more. Okay. Here we have $20,000 here. So even in my case, it may not be auto approved. So I may have to explicitly log in and then approve this request. So let me see after the approval is built, who the approvers are. Okay. And normally it would be routed to 2 different guys. Yeah, it is still being prepared. Okay. Uh, Let me log in here also. One guy could be Adam Jones. Yeah. Now I have the approval built in here, prepared. Okay. Who are the approvers? James Seller is one guy and Anita Kennedy is another person. Okay. So let me log in as those approvers. So for the first time, let me log in as James Seller. He is the first approver. So what's the password for James Seller? Dev11. Yeah, here it is. So James Seller is my first level of approver. I should have received a notification here. So let's quickly check that. Yeah, so James Seller has received a notification. Let me approve this requisition now. Okay, the first level of approval is completed. So I also have the second level of approval. Let me sign out here. The other guy is Anita Kennedy. So let me log in as Anita Kennedy. So similar lines, we will quickly approve this requisition. Okay, so same requisition, just approve this. So thereby we have completed the approval of this requisition. Let's go back to our requisition and review this now. So by this time, this should have been approved. Okay. So now if you observe this, yeah, just click on done, come to the landing page. That's fine. Yeah, now this is approved. So the requisition is now approved. Now, what is the next step? The requisition is approved. We have 4 different lines. We have just built in exactly on the same lines as we see here, right? So we have those values. Next thing is, as I said, since this is an integrated cycle, I have shown you the SSP capability here. Now I want to transform this into a negotiation document. So how can I do that? I can process this as a negotiation. Click on done here. Now go to the purchasing, click on procurement, select the purchase order, purchase orders. You have an option called process negotiations, right? So the way you add all your lines into document builder and then create a purchase order, you would have seen this in week 1. On similar lines, let's go to the task called process requisitions. Let's pick up all our requisition lines here. So the requisition is 204265, right? So I believe now, yeah, we have it here. So just select all those 4 lines in our case, 204265, click on the add to document builder. See the negotiation required flag, it is enabled, right? So I will directly create them as a negotiation document. Add them to the document builder. Again, make a selection for all the 4 lines here. Scroll down and most importantly, select the type as new negotiation because I am taking this into the negotiation route. I want to create a quotation here, request for quotation. And then select the negotiation type as RFQ and the style as standard negotiation. If you scroll down, importantly, select the outcome here. Okay, the outcome can be either of this. So in our case, since we are talking about the complex procurement, right? So I'll select complex work order with work confirmation, right? I'll select this. Click on OK here. Now what happens? You will be now taken into the RFQ page. Yeah, RFQ will be created. Okay. Yeah. Just go ahead and then click on the create. That's fine. It will create an RFQ for you. So the RFQ number is RFQ 31086. Okay. Let me copy this. I'll make a note of this. So this is my RFQ number. So once the RFQ is created, just capture the details related to the RFQ. Click on next. What do we capture here? Maybe I'll say the same RFQ number here. I'll give the synopsis as the same title here. If you scroll down, and yeah, you need to specify the close date. Let's say my close date is tomorrow's date. I specify the tomorrow's date here as close date. I don't need any weightages here. Okay, I disable the weights here. And importantly, since this involves retainage, right? So I am giving a flexibility here to my supplier. So this particular RFQ will anyways be sent to my supplier, right? The supplier will provide his responses. So when he is providing his responses, I am giving a flexibility to the supplier to negotiate the retainage that I am going to specify in this document. Okay, so that's where I enable this checkbox. You'll see it in the next task. Okay, so I am enabling the option called allow suppliers to negotiate retainage. So suppliers can go ahead and then negotiate the retainage rates that I'm going to specify here. Okay, we are giving an option to negotiate. Fine, I've enabled this. Now go to the next, click on the next option. I don't have any requirements here. Click on next. Capture the line level details. Okay. I have all my 4 lines here. Okay. With the price here. Scroll to the right. You have those fields here. So as I said, we have the option at purchase order level as well as the negotiation level. You see the retainage rates and the maximum retainage amount. Just copy whatever is there in this Excel and just put it there. Okay, this particular thing. Columns D and F. Okay. E is anyways computed out of this D. Okay. So it's based on C and D, E is derived. Now what I am interested is column D and column F. Retention is 10% for the first line. Go to the retainage rate as 10%. Maximum retainage amount is what is it? $280. Okay. So I capture this as 280. I'm not allowing any alternate lines. So let's say no. So for the second line, likewise, I have it as 15% and 800. Okay. Let me capture that 15% and 800. Likewise, I'm not having this. No alternate lines are not allowed. And then how about the third line? Third line is 10% and 710. Okay. 10% and 710. I'm not allowing any alternate line. And finally, I have 12% and 680. Okay. Let me capture that also. 12% and 680. I'm not allowing any alternate lines. Fine. So what I have done is I have captured all the line level details. I made sure that my retainage rates and amounts are captured as part of my negotiation. Okay. And now what next? We can click on the next button here. You can add the contract terms. So let's say I want to add a contract term here. Okay. So what I will do is I click on the create contract here. So the contract that I am creating here is a base contract. So you would have seen this in the first half today. Okay, I say this as bylines. This is a base contract because when I say base contract, only the basic terms and conditions. So the terms and conditions which your contractor or supplier will need to comply with, right? So those will be captured as part of this. So I might have some predefined templates available here. So I'll just map it here. So this is kind of a pre-bidding activity, right? So that is where I say this is as a base contract. On the other hand, you also have the master contract. So maybe that is after finalizing, right? At the time of awarding, you might have all the terms and conditions coming into picture. So that time you would use your master contract. So let's say this is a base contract. I'll say 31806. And I will map one existing template, sourcing to contract standard template. Okay. It has some terms and conditions. I'll just make use of it. Click on OK. You can add your contract here, right? We have added the contract templates. Next step is most importantly, we need to add the supplier to whom this RFQ is going to be sent. Okay, so this was already covered on rather yesterday, right? Vijay covered sourcing negotiation yesterday. So I'm not going to talk about each and every field that you see here. Okay, even the contracts we just saw it in first half today. Fine. Now let's click on the next and then add our suppliers. Who are our suppliers? I can add them here. So Lee Supplies is one of the suppliers here. Okay, I'll add Lee Supplies and thereby site and contact and notify all contactors listed. Click on the next button. If you want to review the data, just review it. If you want to check for any validations, click on actions validate. So thereby, if there is any error, system will show you the errors. Fortunately, I don't have any warning here or error here. Go ahead and then publish this particular RFQ or the negotiation document. So once this is published, this will be available. Okay. So this has been submitted for approval. So let's review our negotiation. So where do we see this? We need to go to the procurement module, select negotiations. Okay. So this has been submitted. Next, it will be available. It will not be available within your purchase orders. It will be available within the negotiation. Go to the negotiations. Query our negotiation. Our negotiation number is what is that? 31806. Okay. I'll call this as 31806 and click on search. What happened? Approval is in process. Okay. So let this get approved. Click on done. We'll take this manage negotiations. You can even query by this. Okay. Manage negotiations. Pass the negotiation number there as 31806 and then search. So it should be approved. So yeah, it should be active. It is an active state, which means this RFQ is now sent to Lee Supplies. And for Lee Supplies, we already know who the supplier portal user is, right? So that guy is Ryan Lee. So we will log in as Ryan Lee. We will review this negotiation. Okay. Let me log in as Ryan Lee. And what's my password? Yeah, here it is. So let's see if there is a notification. Looks like there is one. Yes. So see here, you are invited to negotiation 31806, RFQ 31806. It's exactly our negotiation number. Okay. So let me open this. Let me click on this. Okay. What I'll do is I will, you see that you are invited to this negotiation. Okay. You can click on this view negotiation. Just view the particular negotiation document. Okay. You will be taken into the negotiation. See, the timer is already turned on. Okay. So since our close date is 24 hours next date, right? So the timer is already started. It's been 8 minutes since this has started. Okay. Now, what do we do here? I can go ahead and then provide my responses. I am Lee Supplies. I am logged in as Ryan Lee, who is the administrative contact as well as the supplier portal user of this particular supplier. He is going to provide his responses against the RFQ document. Click on create response. You need to specify the response price. And again, if you have bulk data to be uploaded, you can use the response by spreadsheet option. Okay. Now, what I can do is I can click on the next button here, go to the line section, specify your line response price. Let's say I provide my response price in comparison with this, okay, this amount, okay. Let's say I'm not okay with 3,000, I want 3,050. For the second line, let's say I want 5,100. For the third line, let's say I want 7,200, something like that. And fourth line, let's say I'm okay with 5,000. So likewise, if you observe this, you see the line amount getting populated, and thereby your total amount, response amount is $20,350, whereas the RFQ, your requisition was created for $20,000. So there is a slight increase here. So I can even negotiate the returnage rates that are specified here. Okay, you remember I enabled that option, right? Allow negotiation for returnage negotiation for the supplier. So I can even alter this amounts here in case I want. Okay, so at the moment I leave it as it is. I have specified my responses. Click on save and submit them. You can just submit one response to this negotiation. Click on continue. Thereby the response is submitted to the supplier. Okay. Now come back to the supplier login. If you requery this particular negotiation again, you would observe that the response is now showing as one. Right? So there is already one response that has already come in. So what do I do here? Click on this negotiation. Click on action. Monitor this negotiation. Or you can click on monitor supplier activities. Just observe that Lee Supplies, they have viewed your negotiation. They have also submitted the response. Okay, so that we are now clear that there is already a response to this negotiation document. So tomorrow when you are testing this, right, rather today when you are testing this as part of your lab activity, just try to have a couple of other suppliers also, and then see, just compare them before you award it to a specific supplier. Okay. Now, in the interest of time, I've just given one supplier for our demo here, but in reality, you can have more than one. Okay. In case you want to invite additional suppliers, also, you can do that. Right? Click on done. So I'm fine with this. What I'll do is I'll close the negotiation now. Okay. I'll go to yeah, go to the actions. Click on the manage. You have an option called close. I'll close this negotiation immediately because I have received all the responses that I have been anticipating. I had only one supplier, so you can just specify note to the suppliers. You can just specify, maybe we are now closing this negotiation. Okay, just specify anything and then click on this submit. Okay, so emails will be sent to the respective suppliers. Okay, so whoever participated in this negotiation, they will be notified stating that this negotiation document is now closed. Okay. So this you would have anyway seen. Right? So the negotiation document is now closed. Now coming to the award process, how do you award this? You go to the actions here, click on the award and then hit on the award negotiation. Okay. Now, when you hit on this award negotiation, you see the suppliers the responses. You see the response amount 20,350. So this is how the transformed amount is 20,350. And what I can do is I have only one supplier, right? Unfortunately, so not much can be done here. But in case you have multiple, right, you can compare and then award. Now what I'll do is I'll select this line. I can directly award this and then I'll complete it. I can create a purchasing document. But now, since this is an integrated cycle, and I also told that I'll be taking you from FFP into contracts into RFQs, and then I'll create a contract. So what I will do is I'll create a contract here. Okay, click on create contract. You see a contract number is going to be assigned here. Okay, I am creating a contract here. Since this is a complex scenario, right? I'm just trying to focus all the options, all the capabilities that I have here, okay? But otherwise, you can directly award this and then create your purchase document, okay? Now, a contract is created with the lease supply. Now, what happened? The contract has been added here. This is the contract number. If you click on this contract and then get into this, you can see all those party details, supplier, customers, and so on. Now, what I'll do is I have the contract here. I can click on this award option here. If you hit on the award option here, that is where you are going ahead and then going to award this particular line. At the moment, I have only one supplier, right? So select these suppliers, click on the save and close. The changes are saved. Okay. I am trying to award this to these suppliers. I have given it as 100%. Award is in progress. You can just submit this for approval. Go ahead and then submit this for approval. So the award approval will be in process. So we'll have to wait until this award is completed. Okay, the award approval is completed. Rather. So the award, what we have done is we have reviewed the suppliers. I have only these suppliers. I have gone ahead and then I have awarded this to these suppliers. Okay, that's what we have done now. Once the approval is complete, okay, click on that. We need to complete the award. Okay, click on search. See the status here, award approval in process. Okay, this has to change to award approved. Once the award is approved, so that is where once the award is approved, that is where we go there and then complete the award. Okay, let's see if the award is approved. Yeah, the award is approved. Okay, now go back, get back into the negotiation again. Open the negotiation. Award is approved, right? So I'm just running through this because we have already seen this, right? As part of sourcing, you would have already known this. Come to the actions here. Award is approved, right? So what is the next step? We'll have to complete this award. So that's the next step. Click on complete award. Click on it. Now what has happened? Award is also completed. You have awarded the lines to lease supplies. We have also completed the award. Complete award is also done. Now click on this actions, click on analyze and go to this analyze negotiation. If you come to this page, now you have an option to add all your lines that have been awarded into this contract. Okay. So what I'll do is I select this line. I have an option to add all the awarded lines to this contract much before I create my purchasing document. Okay. I will select this. I will click on this add awarded lines to contract. Thereby, you would see now all the lines would be added to this contract. See here, a small green tick mark lines are added to this contract. Okay. This is how you can add all your awarded lines into your contract, and eventually what you can do, you can click on the create purchasing document. So this is the final step where after the contract is created, all the awarded lines are added to the contract. I go there and then create my purchasing document. And within this, if you want to initiate the approval of your purchase orders, okay, you can click on this initiate approval. By means of which your purchase order can also be approved. I'll hit on the submit here. Just observe that a purchase order will be reserved for you. Okay, a purchase order will be created. And that will also be submitted for approval. Just observe this. So this purchasing document number is this one. This is pending approval. Okay. And this will automatically be sent for approval also because we have initiated the approval as well. Okay, let's go to the purchase order page. Now observe the purchase order here. You have the requisition, you have the work confirmation, you have the complex work order. Okay, you see the price here. Okay, so whatever response that was received, It is an agreement to those response prices. Okay, and the purchase order is what is the status? It is pending approval. If you refresh, it should be approved in a while. Just wait for a while. Yes. Okay. Now the purchase order is set to open state. So now what we have done is we have created a requisition. We then went into the negotiation route. We created the RFQ document. From the RFQ document, we captured the RFQ document. We captured the retainage details. From there, we created a base contract. From the base contract, we then sent the RFQ document to the supplier. We received the responses from the supplier, and then we did the award process. Right. Once the award was given to a specific supplier, we then added all the lines to our contract. Right. We created a contract and then added all the lines to the contract. From that, we went ahead and then created the purchase order. And this particular purchase order is look at the outcome here. This is a complex order with work confirmation. Okay. Finally, what we can do is so finally, what we can do is we can process this purchase order. Okay. If you scroll to the right and observe that, you would be able to see all the retainage related fields also visible here. Okay. The next steps will be similar to what we did in the first part of our demonstration. You have to create the work confirmation. If you want to create a work confirmation, click on the action and then hit on the create work confirmation. As simple as that. Okay. Click on the work confirmation and then do the next setup steps. So this is how you can manage your integrated cycle, which we also call it as the smart sourcing scenario. If you want to go for a complex procurement, leveraging all the capabilities that you have in procurement, ranging from your SSP, your contracts, your negotiations, and procurement. So this is how we do it. Okay, that was an end-to-end demonstration of how we can achieve it in complex procurement. Okay? I hope this is clear now. So I believe we are almost on time also, because that is what I wanted to cover as part of this complex procurement. Okay. Rest of the things in the slide is something that we can just go through. I don't have much of the slide. Let me answer your questions now. In case you do not have any questions now, please feel free to drop us. Thank you very much for your participation. Please do provide your feedback also in the feedback portal. Just should not take more than 2 minutes of your time. Just provide your feedback there. Okay. Based on that, we will be adding certain topics. We should look at revising our content and so on. Okay. Thank you very much for your participation. Look forward to seeing you in another workshop. Okay. Yeah, let me see if there are any other questions. Will we have access to the environment until Friday? Yes. Hopefully, yes. You should have access until Friday, end of the day. Yeah. What is the US federal attributes? Where are you referring to? Not very sure. Why source agreement is blank on the PO? We haven't referenced this with rather to any agreement here, right? So here in this case, it was a clear-cut case where we had requisition, negotiation, we did the sourcing, right? We had the contracts alone. We didn't have any agreement. So my contract, I created a purchase order directly. Okay, so that's where you don't see any reference there. Why contract is blank in PO? Yeah, we can check that. I think you may not see it here. Let's quickly check it at the purchase order level. Yeah. It may not be stamped here. Let's quickly see it like this. Yeah. So I don't have any master contract here. Okay. Yeah, we didn't create any master contract as such, but the contract number, I don't think you will not be able to see the reference here. Yeah. It looks like that is by design. Okay. You will not be able to see it. But one thing we can try is probably at the purchase order level, we can try it within the purchase order. Yeah, let's click on details. Have a reference of the requisition here. Let me give one more try at the schedule and the distribution. So if not, then it is by design. Okay. Yes, let's set the schedule also. Let's click the distribution. Let me quickly see the distribution also. Yeah, looks like I don't have a reference here. Okay, looks like that's ready. What else we have? Thank you. US federal attributes looks like these are some of the additional attributes. Okay, DFF information that has been added there. Okay, no functionality related to that in the context of complex procurement. Okay. Yeah, you can have three lines for negotiation, one not negotiated. It all depends upon that flag, right? That you enable and then do that. Is it possible to use an inventory item for this scenario of work confirmation? No, as I said, supporting only description-based purchases here. Okay, we will not be able to use this. Can we create written age rules? No, not really. You can control it only through those two attributes: written age rate and maximum written age amount. Okay, so based on that, you can handle your written age. For complex procurement with work confirmation, is it possible to automatically generate the invoices and payables? I certainly haven't checked that, but system has to know this, right? Like even if you create the invoice automatically, you have to look at the written age rates. It's something that we need to check and then update. I haven't tested that. Yeah, I think. A work confirmation, you will not be able to use it with the regular PO. Okay, you can use it in the context of complex procurement alone. Okay. Yeah, when you open the contract, yes, when I showed you that contract that we created, right? It had the purchase order number also stamped there, right? Okay, click on done. I think it had the PO number. Okay, I remember that. It will in fact contain your purchase order number. Okay. Yes, instance is available till Friday. Thank you. So preparer, requester, preparer is someone who creates the requisition on behalf of the requester. Okay, there are two different, both are different. Okay, so I believe that's all. If you have any other questions, please put it in the Q&A. But otherwise, you can put it in the forum also in case you have anything specific, or if you are stuck somewhere in the instance, right, when you are practicing this, please post it with the screenshots. We will check and then we will revert. Right? In case you do not have any other questions, please feel free to drop us. Okay. So that's all I had as part of today's demonstration, and this also concludes our 2-week long workshop. We had the first week starting 13th, and then it went on till last week as such. And then this is a 3-day workshop, and then we are concluding this today. So please practice, keep practicing. Instance is available until Friday. If you have any other questions, please put it in the forum. We will respond to that. Okay. Otherwise, this access to secure sites will be available with you. You can download it at any point. Okay. Uh, Fine. So that's all I had, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your participation. Have a wonderful rest of the day. We look forward to seeing you in some other workshop. Okay. Thank you. I'll stop.